Welcome to today's episode. I am so excited to share some really big news with y'all. If you are new to listening to my podcast, my name is Heather McConaughey, and I'm a trained registered nurse turned nutritionist. Woo! We've got so much to cover today. This is going to be a longer episode, more like an hour. So put on your headphones and head out for an hour walk, or make a cup of coffee or tea and maybe grab a notepad to take some notes on what I'm sharing if it interests you, or listen to me as you're driving in the car. I really invite you to listen to the whole episode because there is a lot that I want to share with you and kind of walk you through my thinking and my experience and my clients' journeys so that you can really understand the full picture of why I'm making some changes in my business. So first, I just want to start with gratitude. If you've been listening to my podcast since 2018, thank you for being a loyal listener. If you've been following me on Instagram, thank you for letting me into your life and helping me really be a force of good in your life, hopefully. And if you have been a client, if you've purchased one of my programs or products, I just want to say thank you so much for investing your money with me and my business and products, because it has truly been an honor and a privilege to get to serve women in the way that I have been able to do for the past 5 years. So I have 3 intentions that I want to lay down for us for this next hour. The first is that I just want to speak with truth and authenticity with you. If you've been following me, hopefully you pick up that one of my core values is being authentic and being vulnerable. So my goal is to really just be very transparent and honest and authentic with you, though it might be a little uncomfortable for me at times. My second intention is to leave you more empowered, more educated, and more excited about your relationship with body and food. And the third intention is to really point us in the direction where I want to take us next. So if you think of me like a captain of the ship and you're on the ship, I'm going to be pointing us in a different direction now than we've been going. And you might want to get to that destination point with me, or you might not. And if you need to disembark the ship, that's okay. You can always come back on at another place. But I want to really show you where my intention is in taking you so you can see if it's aligned for you. Let's just start with a little bit of background. For those of you who don't know me, this will be new, but even if you are familiar with me, you may not fully know my background professionally. So I was a registered nurse for 6.5 years. I spent most of my time working at a level 1 trauma center in the emergency room. So I have a lot of experience working with a lot of different types of disease processes. I also worked in psychiatric emergency nursing. I worked in surgical ophthalmology. I've worked in orthopedic surgery as well. So I have a lot of different experience in nursing, but I would say the core of my skill set in nursing was my emergency room time. I have a bachelor's of science in nursing. I also have a bachelor's of art in journalism and a minor in fine arts, right? So it's so fun owning a business where I can be creative and create designs and graphics and share things and try to think of the visual aspect of the business too, right? And bring that in. And then I have been a nutritionist for 5 years. I've been an online nutritionist since May of 2017. And I specialized in weight loss for women, specifically through macro counting. So that's a little bit about my professional background. Before I was a nurse, I spent time working in training and development. I was an assistant. I've been a nanny. I've done so many different things. And, one of the cool things about having a career is seeing it morph and change over the years. So I've basically been working for, post-college, I've been working for about 18 years. And I've really been working since I was 16, 17. So over 20 years of work experience. And one of the things I've learned in my career is that you evolve and change. You develop new interests. Something pulls you in a new direction. You decide you want to pivot. You decide you want to learn or grow in a new way. When I was working as an assistant and nanny in Los Angeles, I decided I wanted to make a hard pivot and go back to school to become a nurse, which was kind of out of left field, right? But it led me down this beautiful path where I've learned so much about disease and health, and I've learned about nutrition now and gotten to help people with their bodies and their health and their mindset. So you never know like where that next turn is going to take you in life. And so I'm really excited to be at this new juncture in my professional advancement and career where I've decided that, you know what, there is something new that's really exciting to me that I want to not only explore for myself, but I want to share and teach to others. So let's talk about what's going on. Well, what's going on is I'm changing my nutrition philosophy. I am changing two things. One is I'm changing the promise and outcome of my program and coaching. So what I promise that I will deliver to you as a business owner is changing. And then the methodology that I use is changing. What's not changing is one, my passion for empowering women and helping women. My core mission as a company is to empower women. So nothing's changing there. And I'm still maintaining my role as a nutritionist. So while I'm tweaking some things in my title and in my approach and my outcomes, I'm still focused on helping women with their body and food. I'm just coming at it now from a new angle, which I'm really excited to share with you about. So there's three things that really prompted this change, and I want to give you some background on all three of them so you can really understand my thinking. The first is personal, the second is professional, and the third is societal. So let's delve into these one by one. Let's start with the personal because I think we can all really relate to other women's stories. So last summer, it was summer of 2021, there were two moments that helped me realize that something in my eating, something in my approach to body and fitness was no longer working for me personally. So this is outside of the results that my clients were getting or experiencing. This was something that was internally happening for Heather, the individual, not Heather, the nutrition coach, not Heather, the nutritionist, right? So we're going to call these things hummus and dominoes so you can remember them, all right? So the first thing is the hummus story is how I refer to it. It was the summer and I was craving some hummus. Seems like a normal, healthy-ish food, right? Like some hummus. And it's just chickpeas and some tahini and some oil and lemon juice, right? And I went to the grocery store and was looking at containers of hummus and looking at the nutrition label, and I could not pick a hummus. I would pick up a container of hummus, look at the nutrition label, put it back on the shelf. I would do that with multiple containers of hummus, and then I just would walk away. I walked away from the hummus section with no hummus in my shopping cart. And I got home and I thought, that's kind of weird. Hummus is a pretty healthy food, I think, right? I'm a nutritionist and I'm it's got a lot of nutrients, it's tasty, it's filling, that's kind of odd that I won't even let myself buy some hummus. I also had an experience where I think I had a friend or somebody come over and I opened my fridge to grab them a drink or something. And they made some remark like, where's all your food? Why don't you have anything in your fridge? And I looked in my fridge and thought, what do you mean? I've got lots of food in here. I've got all the food I need for the week, right? I've got my egg whites. I've got my vegetables. I've got some salmon. What else do I need, right? So that was the first thing that happened to me last summer. The second thing that happened to me was the Domino's incident. And you can probably guess where this is going. This was when I ordered a Domino's pizza and an order of Domino's brownies, and I proceeded to eat the whole pizza and half the brownies in one sitting and felt ill, felt disgusting, felt shame, felt embarrassed, felt frustrated and angry, and also felt despair and just feeling kind of hopeless. I was also experiencing a lot of body checking. Do y'all experience this? Looking in the mirror, self-critiquing, comparing my body to other people's bodies, just never feeling satisfied, always having to look in the mirror or at my reflection and like see what my body looked like. So at first, I didn't connect the hummus story to the binge eating, to the body checking, but I went online and I did what I always do, which is try to solve a problem. I'm a problem solver. So I Googled, why do I keep binge eating? And I think I Googled it actually, or searched it on like the iTunes like podcast app. And I found a bunch of podcasts that, were relevant to this. And I started listening to them. And I started to really learn about intuitive eating. Now, let's just back up. I have to admit that I used to kind of be anti-intuitive eating. I kind of put it down. I kind of thought it was, not a great thing, and like my way was better. And part of this was, one, I didn't actually understand what intuitive eating was, which we're going to talk more about on future episodes, but a lot of people don't actually understand what intuitive eating is. Like they're just like, oh, I'll just intuitive eat, and there's like, well, there's actually some principles that you need to really think through and understand, and things that you need to develop in yourself to reclaim being an intuitive eater, because you're born an intuitive eater and then you get off track living in modern society, or many of us do. And so I didn't really understand what it was. And the second thing was I had internalized fat phobia. So I had a lot of fear and phobia around like gaining weight or being heavier or being in a larger body. And so I, had kind of rejected my initial exposure to intuitive eating like over the past couple years. But what I started to hear on these episodes really connected for me, which was this. My restrictive behaviors, i.e. the hummus, were causing my binges, i.e. the Dominoes. Now, for me, this was a big light bulb moment. This may seem kind of like a no-duh moment to you, but I didn't perceive my behaviors as restrictive. I was just watching this episode where a nutrition or a dietitian kind of critiques celebrity diets or things that celebrities are doing with their nutrition or just other things in the media. And she was talking about how Victoria Beckham was labeling her eating as like, oh, I'm just a fussy eater. I'm just like, I'm just always super healthy. Like I've just always been a super healthy eater. I'm just like kind of picky. I just like things super clean, right? And meanwhile, she's only eating like steamed vegetables, lean fish, like avocados, nuts, seeds. Like she has a very restrictive diet, and she does not perceive her eating as restrictive. And I think that's the first thing to understand, is that when we are steeped in quote unquote diet culture, when we have engaged in restrictive behaviors around our food for a long time, it can become an ingrained part of our identity where we don't actually perceive it as restrictive. And so I didn't perceive many of my behaviors as dieting or restrictive behaviors. For example, I didn't perceive like me not buying hummus as like dieting. I just thought like I'm committed to like being my healthiest and like, like maintaining my physique. Like I didn't perceive it as like a diet. And we're going to define what that word means, because it's a word that I think a lot of people don't understand what it means fully. The other thing that can be restrictive is actually over-exercise. So a lot of people kind of understand the concept of like, you don't have to earn your food. And that's become like a more popular concept. But I think a lot of people don't connect over-exercise as actually a form of restriction. And I was definitely engaging in over-exercise. So it wasn't uncommon for me to spend like 2 hours moving my body every day. Like maybe 45 minutes lifting weights, an hour walk. Like that just seemed normal to me. And while I love moving my body, and there are still some days where I might move for a few hours just because I'm doing activities I enjoy, at that moment, I was using exercise as a form of modifying and maintaining my body, not from a place of like joy and feeling good. So it was a form of restrictive dieting. And then like I would wake up in the night with hunger, but not perceive that as like a dieting issue or a dieting problem. Like I would just be like, oh, like I got woken up and I'm hungry. And I would often eat a snack in the middle of the night, but I didn't connect it to like overall I'm restricting. I thought maybe just it was like that particular day. So what I did next was I found and hired a lovely coach. She was an intuitive eating coach that I found online. I really liked her vibe. She was very gentle and kind, and I just thought I would really enjoy working with her. She had me read the Intuitive Eating book, which was published in, I think, 1995 by two registered dietitians, Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch. I'm not exactly sure how to say her name. And I read that book, and I started to implement what I was learning. You know, when I hired this coach, there were a couple things that I wanted her to help me with. The first thing is I wanted her to help me with my binge and overeating. I was really frustrated that I was having these binge episodes, so I wanted to heal that. The other thing was I missed food. I've always loved food. I've been a foodie. I used to bake with my mom. I actually entered like a pie baking contest in 7th grade and like won like a second place prize at the fair. Like I loved cooking shows, etc. And so I've always enjoyed food, but I also felt like I missed food. Like I didn't get to enjoy it anymore because I was trying so desperately to just like maintain my physique. So I started to implement these principles, and I will tell you something. It was hard. This was not easy work. This was inner work. This was dismantling beliefs that I had. This was dealing with anxiety and fear around food and my body changing. This brought up issues of like my fear of, am I lovable if my body changes? This brought up, you know, like where is my worth actually like grounded in? This brought up spiritual things I had to work through with God. Like this brought up a lot of stuff. So I'm just telling you that this work is not always easy, but it's extremely rewarding, and it is the thing that has liberated me. At that point, I really felt like I was between a rock and a hard place, and maybe you can relate. I was terrified of gaining weight, but I also like couldn't diet any longer. I think I see this pattern in some women where they can diet for a certain period of time, like years perhaps, and then all of a sudden they just like hit a wall. And I hit a wall. Perhaps my wall was accelerated by the fact that my job requires me to talk about, you know, dieting all the time, right? Like helping women lose weight is dieting. And I noticed that my own mental health was taking a beating from focusing so much on weight loss, changing the body, like losing weight, shrinking the body for my clients. And, you know, I started to feel that effect for myself, right? So let's just pause for a second and define what a diet is. If you're taking notes, you might want to write this down. A diet is modifying your food or exercise to change your body shape, and specifically to shrink your body. So we can also use the word diet very neutrally to just describe like what you eat in a day. So I might say like, oh, like my normal diet consists of broccoli, egg whites, cookies, bagels, cheese, tater tots, smoothies. And in that context, I'm just using the word diet to just describe my general like consumption of food, right? But how most people relate to the word diet and how we're kind of programmed to think of the word diet is changing or restricting our food in order to shrink our body and lose weight. Okay, so that's really what a diet is. And without realizing it, I was engaged in really unconscious dieting behaviors. And perhaps you are too. Perhaps you realize that while you haven't consciously been on a diet or thought you're on a diet or you think you're just eating healthier, like the behaviors you're engaged in actually are diet behaviors. One of the things that I had to go through in my intuitive eating journey was allowing myself unconditional permission to eat food, which sounds both exciting and terrifying at the same time. And I just kind of jumped all in with it. I started a process called habituation, where you start allowing yourself to eat previously forbidden foods, and you allow yourself to eat as much of them as you want, which was really scary for me because if you've been like super restricting your food and you've been like keeping yourself artificially thin, so to speak, and really working extra hard to maintain a certain level of thinness in your body, when you start allowing yourself forbidden foods, like you can and probably will gain some weight, which is not a bad thing necessarily for you at all, but like mentally it can be challenging. And so I did gain some weight relatively quickly. And I felt frustrated. I felt really upset about it. I felt angry. I felt frustrated. I felt scared. And I shared these things with my coach, and she was so awesome and so gentle as she walked through it with me. Excuse me. I think I was holding on to the thin ideal because part of it is what I'd built my business on. So, when I learned about macros, it was a really exciting thing for me because one, I learned so much about nutrition through tracking food. And there's a lot of positives that I experienced through tracking macros and learning about macros. And I hopefully have taught my clients those positives as well. I think I have gotten a lot of clients tell me how knowledgeable they feel about food now, which makes me really happy. So tracking my food and counting macros did teach me a tremendous amount about food. I learned that an egg has more fat grams than protein. I learned that peanut butter is really more fat than protein. And all of that nutrition knowledge is now filed away in the back of my head and helps inform me now when I make eating decisions, right? And macros is also something that really helped me perform athletically. So I was doing CrossFit when I first started tracking macros, and my performance was really lagging in the gym. So I didn't have energy. I was sluggish. I was slow in workouts. I also was losing muscle. I wasn't getting stronger. And when I started tracking macros and eating like the proper ratio of foods and really optimizing that, my athletic performance soared, which was really exciting for me. So while, yes, I was also focused on losing fat and trimming down my body, I also was experiencing the benefits of getting stronger and performing better athletically in the gym. So I don't want to discount the value that macro counting has played in my life, has played in my clients' lives. If you are a client listening, I don't want you to think, oh my gosh, like, is macro counting just like something I should never do or is not valuable? And to that I would say, like, no, I think that it can be very valuable for people at certain phases in their journey. And it definitely was for me. What I discovered though was long-term, trying to use it as a method long term was preventing me from actually having like a super healthy relationship with food. And so at this point, I was like trying to shift my teaching in my coaching, and I was trying to make changes. But what I was bumping up against was I was trying to deliver a new promise to my clients, but I didn't have the right methodology to get them there. So I was like trying to just teach them to like not care about weight loss and to be more focused on like feeling good and confident and energy and like understanding nutrition. But I was still using like macro counting to try to get them there. And that just actually wasn't the right vehicle, so to speak, to like get to that destination. Think about it this way. If, I was like, oh, I'll take you to, Hawaii, like on a, boat, like that makes a lot of sense to like, cross the ocean and like take you there. But if like, I want to take you to like Mount Everest, like it's not going to make sense to like get on a boat to like try to get to Mount Everest because it's landlocked, right? Like you actually need to like fly somewhere and then hike. You can't get to it from a boat. So it's like I was trying to take people to Mount Everest, but like still on the boat. Does that make sense? So what I actually needed was a new method. And I wasn't sure how to do that yet. I was still trying to figure out how to, I was trying to figure out how do I get them to Mount Everest now, right? I've been using a boat for the past 5 years. Now I'm trying to get to Mount Everest, but a boat won't work, and I'm not sure what will work to get them there. So meanwhile, I was also dating. This is when I met my boyfriend, Hunter. I was growing in my spiritual faith. And so weight loss and appearance honestly started to become less personally interesting or relevant to me. I got to this point where I was like, you know what? I don't think I want my whole life to be around weight loss. Like, I want to empower women. I want to help women feel good in their skin. I want to help women feel confident and energized. And I want to help women feel good about their nutrition. And I want them to see how good they can feel from eating well. But I also want them to see how important it is to have balance and not be restricted. And so I was trying to figure out how do I get there? Can you guys kind of hear my thought process? I was just kind of going through this challenging internal journey of how to both heal myself, but then shift things to help my clients and the women in my audience. Honestly, I kind of rebelled against intuitive eating 4 months into the process, which is very normal. I started to pick up some of my restrictive practices again. I even tried tracking food. I did some weird fasting, but honestly, that was the end. I was I cannot do this anymore. I tried doing some alternate day fasting, and I did that for 2 or 3 days. I was weighing myself. I was rebound eating worse than ever after fasting. And I just was what am I doing? I called my coach back. I was help me, help. I pulled out intuitive eating again. I reread the book, and then I committed to being all in to my journey to heal. I think there's something that is not talked about a lot in the fitness and health space, especially online now. You used to have to go to an office to see a dietitian or a nutritionist. And then with the explosion of the internet, so many people have been able to come online and teach fitness and health and nutrition. And we all have varying levels of certification and degrees. So, I have a registered I have a registered nurse license and a nursing degree. I also have a sports nutrition certification, but I'm not a dietitian. And then I have friends who, were personal trainers, but they're not nutritionists, they're not dietitians, they don't even have a health degree necessarily. I have friends who just worked at fancy gyms, and now they're coaching other women on food. So there's just a lot of mixed credentials in the space online. And I think what happens is many women become registered dietitians or nutritionists or personal trainers or fitness and health coaches, and some men as well, right? Because of their own body dissatisfaction that they have then quote unquote transformed through their process, which was some type of dieting. And now they're going to teach you that process. And what happens is a lot of them are actually experiencing disordered eating behaviors behind the scenes, and sometimes often full-fledged eating disorders. So, a lot of these coaches that you see are maintaining their physiques through over-exercise, intense amounts of exercise, and restrictive eating patterns. Some of them are purging. Some of them are, actually engaged in more anorexic behaviors or severe undereating. And then they teach and train and coach other women who also have body dissatisfaction, and the cycle continues because there's demand. And this was something that I bumped into as I sought to make shifts in my business was, women want weight loss. Even this spring when I tried talking to a few people about hey, I'm moving in this new direction. Are you interested in going here with me? It was they still wanted weight loss. They're well, let's do the weight loss thing first. I want the weight loss first. And so I've have even experienced professionally, like, wow, like this is challenging for some women to let go of. Okay. So let's now shift from like the personal to the professional. And thank you for listening intently to my story and like where I've been. And just to kind of let you know where I'm at now is like, wow, my relationship with food is so joyful. I have so much more peace. My anxiety has like improved dramatically. I used to think like I just had anxiety or like, you know, all these mental health things kind of like going on for me. And I used to think things like, oh, gluten and sugar were causing my mental health challenges. And now I'm like, no, it was dieting. Like the reason I was anxious is because I was dieting all the time and I didn't realize it, but I was dieting in the background, and that will create anxiety. And so I'm in such a good place now with food where like I can keep food in my house and like forget about it. Like I have cookies in the freezer and I have cookies on the counter. I have bagels, I have tortillas, I have chips and crackers, and I either forget about foods or I just eat foods I enjoy. I haven't binged. I rarely overeat anymore. Like I've had so much growth and healing in this area, and it's been so awesome. Okay, so let's talk about the professional changes. So I've been doing this for 5 years. And, you know, when I first started my coaching practice, it was because people at my CrossFit gym saw my own changes in my body, right? So they could see me day by day physically change. They could see my physique change. I lost body fat. I got stronger, and people were like, okay, what are you doing, right? And I'm like, well, this is what I'm doing. And what I learned was the more restrictive my program was, quote unquote, the better the results were. So if I had my clients eat 0 sugar for 12 weeks, if they ate super low glycemic load foods, if they had no alcohol, if they had lots of veggies, they would lose weight. Like they would get like fast results, right? And they would be happy with that. But then something happened. I would have clients return to me having regained the weight. And not just 1 or 2 clients, but like multiple clients. And I'd be like, 2 thoughts crossed my mind. The first was, did I fail to teach them something? Like, do I need to put a module in about maintenance? Or like, did I fail to teach them how to maintain? Or like, what's missing from my program that like they're not maintaining their weight loss? And then the second thought I had was, well, or is it just their willpower? Like, did they just go off the deep end again and they need help again? Like, I mean, I taught them everything I know. Like, you know, is it just their willpower? And then, so sometimes I would work with a client again, and this time the weight would not fall off as easily. Okay. It was often much harder. And I would feel frustrated, and I know they probably felt frustrated, but it was like, well, I don't know why it's not happening. Like, it should be happening. This works, right? Like, I've used it before. And I would feel like a failure. My client feels like a failure. And then I had a light bulb moment as I was going through my healing journey, which was, what's actually failing us is dieting. Okay? Dieting. Because here's the thing. I am not the only coach who works with people and helps them lose weight and they gain it back. I realized this is not Heather specific, and this is also not you specific. This is dieting. It was very validating to read about other dietitians and nutritionists who'd worked with clients, the authors of Intuitive Eating, who'd had this exact same experience. And I was like, oh, I'm not alone. And the longer you work as a nutritionist or dietitian, the more likely you are to see this pattern of repeat clients or people coming back. And here's the thing, like, if you follow a coach on Instagram or online, they're not going to highlight the client who gained weight back. They're not going to be like, that's not going to be their like testimonial. That's not going to be the before and after photo that they show you. But I guarantee you that all of these coaches out there, no matter what the marketing they're saying, like if they're promising forever fat loss, permanent fat loss, like just run the other direction, okay? Because those coaches are not showing you the people who either didn't get results in their program or the people who did and then gained it all back and maybe gained even more. And again, this is not to call out any specific coach because like I've experienced this too. This is not to throw anybody under the bus. This is to call out dieting as a principle because it goes against our biology. It goes against our body's need for fuel and all of the powerful mechanisms that are happening biologically to keep you from dying through starvation, and all of the effects that has psychologically and physically. So here's the thing. You might still want weight loss right now. And I get that because we are entrenched in a culture that still worships and idolizes the thin ideal as a beauty standard in the fashion world. And so it can be very scary to give that up as an outcome or goal that you desire. And I realized that, yes, I could help women do that, but one, will you be able to keep it off? And two, will it require excessive exercise and monitoring and restrictive eating practices for you long term? All right. So yes, like if you're a current client of mine, like, and you are in my macro counting program, like you like can get results, right? You can lose that weight, but I want to make sure that like you maintain it. And how that's going to happen is through you actually learning to tune into your hunger and fullness signals, and for you to actually tune into your taste preferences, and for you to accept that your set point, the weight that your body actually wants to be at, is maybe higher than like you want it to be, or it's higher than like the world's ideal. Okay. I also realized at this point professionally that continuing to focus on weight loss and macro counting and food tracking was delaying my full healing journey. I'm also committed to ethics in my business, and it started not feeling right to promise weight loss. It can be a very variable process. And while I do have a guarantee in my program, because I do know that it works and I believe in it when people follow the process around like losing inches off your waist, which is one of the best measures of fat loss. I also just realized that, what actually makes me most excited in my coaching business has always been the mindset part of coaching. I've always kind of felt more like a therapist or a counselor to my clients when I'm like really in my zone and shining. My skill set, like my passion is not making you a meal plan, right? Like it's not designing workouts for you. That's not my gift. My gift is in helping you see blind spots and limiting beliefs and helping empower you to remove those and really achieve what you want in life without those barriers and feel liberated. So I realized that I'd kind of gotten away from mindset being like the number one focus in my coaching because of that focus on weight loss. I realized even that sometimes clients, like I wanted to do the inner work with them and like I wanted to help them through these kind of deeper issues, but like they didn't really want to do that work. They were just like, I just want to like lose the weight, right? And I was like, ooh, this is actually not really aligned for me. So after 5 years, I honestly just felt very professionally complete teaching weight loss, and I was just ready to grow and evolve. Many nutritionists and dietitians go on this path of kind of, they're very optimistic, they're very idealistic, they're going to help people, they're going to help solve the obesity epidemic or whatever, right? And then they start working with clients and they go through a period of disillusionment and ultimate reordering of their philosophy. This is a very normal experience, and I've witnessed many other highly respected dietitians go through this process as well. And my time had come, right? And I wanted to continue coaching around nutrition and food because I love food and I love cooking, but I also love mindset and spiritual growth. And that's where intuitive eating started to reveal itself as the method, as the vehicle that would get us to the new destination. So finally, like I knew I couldn't use the boat to get us to Mount Everest, but all of a sudden I saw the new method to get us there, and it was intuitive eating. The third influence on this shift in my nutritional philosophy is societal. In some circles, I feel like I'm almost late to the game. Intuitive eating, HAES, healthy at every size, anti-diet movements, many of these concepts are much more known and prevalent in other circles. But I'm realizing the more that I start talking about my shift with friends, family, other people who aren't familiar with these concepts in the space, that actually these concepts are not mainstream yet. And dieting is still what's mainstream. There's still so many people who don't know about true intuitive eating, how to heal from dieting, or, how to make peace with food. There's stores now that show all different sizes of models and unairbrushed pictures, which I love and really appreciate. I grew up in the 90s as a teenager, so all I had, it was like pre-internet, basically, definitely pre-social media. And all I had were fashion magazines and like talk shows, TV, movies, celebrities to look at. And so the images I had were all airbrushed, fashion magazines, teen magazines, very disempowering, for women who have, real bodies. Body positivity has been growing as a movement, and many people have become disillusioned with dieting. There's new and emerging research supporting intuitive eating and HAES as concepts within the health industry, and dieting, in a sense, is an epidemic that contributes to the increase that we see in larger sized individuals. So when everyone's talking about like the obesity epidemic, you can actually tie it to like the dieting epidemic. And dieting actually increases fat gain long term. So here's the thing. When we know better, we do better. And I can only take clients to the place that I've gone as well, right? Like if you're a guide going up a mountain and you're taking your clients on this mountain climb with you, if you only know how to get to, the first summit of the mountain, like that's as far as you can take them. If you only know how to summit, Mount Everest, which still is a big mountain, obviously it's the tallest one in the world. I've been watching a lot of things about Mount Everest. That's why I keep talking about Mount Everest on this episode. But if you've only ever summited Mount Everest and like you've never summited K2, like you can't take your clients up K2, no matter how good you are at summiting Everest. Does that make sense? K2 is the second tallest mountain in the world. And so I realized that, I needed to transform myself in order to be able to take my clients up this next challenge. And so now that I know better, I can do better. There's a few lessons that I've learned. Number one, intuitive eating is not a quick process. So this is not a, 2-month process or even a 3-month process. This is more like a 6 to 12-month process for most people. The longer you've been engaged in dieting behaviors or the more entrenched your dieting thinking is, the longer your healing journey can take. And that's okay. Gentleness, patience, and compassion go a long way. One of the beautiful gifts of intuitive eating is you really learn patience at a whole new level for a variety of reasons. The second thing that I've learned is the root of dieting behavior is body dissatisfaction. Okay, so like why are we all trying to change our food, or why are we all trying to change our movement? Okay, we are trying to change our body. Well, why are we trying to change our body? Because we're dissatisfied with our body. Okay, well, where is that coming from? Is that coming from unhealed body image trauma in your childhood, adolescence, and early 20s? I had guys tell me that I had one guy in particular tell me that I would be really hot if I just lost my thigh fat. I had another guy, make comments about like the dimples on my thighs. And so obviously I became very self-conscious about my thighs. That was like the one area of my body that I felt self-conscious about, that I could never seem to perfect. No matter what I did, I could not get quote unquote my perfect thighs. I spent $5,000 over 2 years basically doing CrossFit. I busted my butt in the gym. I changed my eating. I lost weight. And guess what? My thighs were still not perfect enough for me. And I started to realize that, wow, even at my thinnest, I was still unsatisfied with my body. Maybe my body dissatisfaction is not coming from my size. Maybe it's coming from me internalizing other people's phobia or dislike of my body, and then me believing those messages from them. Like, where did that even come from? Reading some article in Vogue magazine telling me how to get rid of my cellulite, right? Like, this is stuff that is entrenched, and we have to really heal our body dissatisfaction in order to escape dieting and have a positive, healthy relationship with food and body. The third lesson I learned was worship of your appearance tends to equal a disconnect from the values of God. So this healing journey has been deeply spiritual for me. And as I've gotten more aligned in my spiritual faith, as I've gotten more aligned with God's values, I've realized that my appearance is one dimension of me, but it's not the most important part of me. While I want to look my best for my partner, while I want to feel my best and be attractive to my partner, while I want to put my best foot forward and feel cute in clothes, and I love makeup and I love fashion and I love all those things. I love beauty and I love feeling my best. I realized that worshiping at the idol of appearance was actually like a very destructive way to live life, and it was something that I no longer aligned with. Okay, so let's just take a deep breath. That was a lot. Thank you for hanging in and listening. Where are we going from here? Okay, so the first thing is I'm so passionate about intuitive eating that I'm actually getting a professional certification from the original authors of intuitive eating. And I'm going to become a certified intuitive eating counselor. At this point, I already am comfortable to actually teach intuitive eating and coach other women in it, in addition to the fact that I have so much experience coaching women in nutrition and mindset. And I'm also still getting certified in this specific methodology because I want to be really the best coach that I can be for my clients. So I'm really excited that I will be a certified intuitive eating counselor within the year. I've also been reimagining my promises as a coach and my coaching offers. So when you design a coaching offer for your clients, you always start with what's the promise that you want to deliver to them? What's the outcome that you want your clients to experience through working with you? And then you design your coaching offer. You design your program, your curriculum, how you teach it, the lessons, the coaching that's going to go into that. You design that out of the promise. And I'm going to share my new promise with you in a minute, but that's what I've been doing. I've been reimagining my promise. I've been spending a lot of deep thinking time. You know, what is it that I want to help women with? What is it that I want to help them heal? How do I want to package that as a coach and deliver that as an offer to my audience and my clients? And then I will be focusing on helping you heal from diet culture, master intuitive eating, and improve your thinking, right? If we trace dieting back to its origin point, like body dissatisfaction, well, body dissatisfaction also comes from poor thinking about our body, cognitive distortions, negative thoughts, and those thoughts need to be transformed. And so really helping my clients improve their thinking through different tools like cognitive behavioral therapy, all of the tools that I've developed in myself over the years to improve my thinking, those are going to be a big focus of where I want to move my coaching practice and my methodology. Okay, so I want to share my new program promise with you all. Drum roll, please. So my new promise as a coach is to help you eat all foods without anxiety, stop overeating and obsessing over food, and take back your life from yo-yo dieting by mastering the 10 principles of intuitive eating. So you can hear the outcome that I want to help you achieve, and you can hear the vehicle that I'm going to use to get you there, which is mastering the 10 principles of intuitive eating. I want to say one thing about macro counting and all of the nutrition knowledge. So if you're a current client or a former client, all of the knowledge that you have gained through my coaching programs that have focused on macro counting actually fit inside of the 10th pillar of intuitive eating. So what's really cool is all of the nutrition knowledge that I've gained and that I've taught is actually already housed under the 10th principle of intuitive eating. So we're not abandoning all of that knowledge. We're not getting rid of it. We are now adding 9 more amazing concepts to empower us with body and food. It's almost like I kind of just had like one pillar to teach for the past 5 years, and now I'm going to have 10 pillars to teach, which is so freaking exciting. So for example, there is a principle I teach my clients, which is creating 30-30-10 meals, which is roughly 30 grams of protein, 30 grams of carbs, and 10 grams of fat. Even though I'm an intuitive eater now, that knowledge that I have around the 30-30-10 structure and how to structure meals informs how I still put together my meals as an intuitive eater. Does that make sense? So what I'm really excited about is to take all of that nutrition knowledge and have that be part of my curriculum, but not in a restrictive way. Like, we're not going to be counting macros, we're not going to be calculating macros, but we are going to talk about hey, roughly, if you eat 20 to 40 grams of protein at a meal, you'll tend to feel more full. It'll also turn on muscle protein synthesis. Does this mean you have to eat 120 grams of protein a day? No, but knowing that it turns on muscle protein synthesis and that my body recovers from workouts and builds muscle with more protein, I tend to still eat 100 grams of protein a day on average because of that knowledge. Does that make sense? Okay, so what'll be happening next is I'll be doing a whole live video sequence in June. I'll be doing like 3 videos a week in June on my Instagram. So if you want to come over and watch them live or listen to them there, you can. I'll also be sharing a lot more content on the podcast in June, so you can listen to all of these new topics. I'm really excited. Like, I've kind of felt like a horse, like behind the gate, and I'm just like raring to go, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. And I'm just really excited to just build on all of the knowledge that I've already been able to teach my clients. And like I said, just like I've been teaching 1 pillar, basically, I'm really excited to add like 9 more pillars. I really appreciate you being here. I hope that you stay. I hope that you stay as I evolve. But if you leave for now, if you're like, you know what, Heather, I just want to lose weight, I don't want to learn about this, like, I totally understand and I respect that. And you're always welcome back at any time. Please send me your questions or your thoughts on this to my Instagram. You can send me a DM on Instagram. You can also send me an email, heather@heathermcconaughey.com. My mission is always to empower women, and I'm excited to be able to do that in a new way. I believe that I have found a better, more effective, long-lasting way to empower you with your body, with your food, with your life. And so that's why I'm making this shift. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for listening to the whole episode. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to continue this journey with you and just keep growing and evolving together. So I will talk to you next week.